It is now clear that we've achieved the most incredible political thing. Look what happened. Is this crazy? I want to thank the American people for the extraordinary honor of being elected your 47th president and your 45th president. I will not rest until we have delivered the strong, safe, and prosperous America that our children deserve and that you deserve.
So, following Trump's victory in the presidential election, red state governors, legislators, and AGs have become thoroughly emboldened, and it seems a little drunk on power. They're preparing to advance even more heavily conservative policies on their turf than what they've previously expressed. According to the Washington Post, of the 27 Republican governed states, 23 are backed by Republican legislative majorities that go back into session in the new year. And they've got plans. They have a lot of plans. This from the Washington Post. Idaho lawmakers want to allow school staff to carry concealed firearms without prior approval and parents to sue districts in library and curriculum disputes. Lawmakers in Oklahoma plan to further restrict abortion by limiting the emergency exceptions and to require the 10 Commandments to be displayed in public schools, while their counterparts in Arkansas are moving to create the felony offense of vaccine harm, which could make pharmaceutical companies or their executive officers potentially criminally liable. I'm laughing a little bit because it's just so ridiculous. You also have things like the Moms for Liberty-led school choice bills that allow public taxpayer money to be used by parents who want to send their children to private schools. This has become a priority in a few different states, such as Texas, the Carolinas, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. But it's not just creating and pushing these newer policies. Many red states are beginning to circle back to policies that had been shot down by the courts and the Biden administration in the past. More from the Washington Post. Since Trump was elected, the 29 Republican state attorneys general have individually and in coalitions defended gun rights, blocked certain policies benefiting immigrants, and defended restrictions on gender-affirming care for minors and transgender students' participation in girls and women's sports. And in addition to their overall runner's high, they're looking at the next administration as a whole, and they're very optimistic about their chances of passing their bills, especially since a lot of the different government departments' relationship to the red states are going to change in the near future. For instance, the president-elect's pick for Attorney General, Pam Bondi, is a former Florida Attorney General who this year chaired the legal arm of Trump-aligned America First Policy Institute. And his pick to lead the department's Civil Rights Division, San Francisco attorney Harmeet Dillon, founded a group that has advanced anti-transgender cases. But none of this really compares to states like Texas, which is probably showing the most aggression based on the sheer numbers of policies they've already proposed in immigration alone. Migrants are a particular focus, with bills to create a Texas Border Protection Unit and to repeal in-state tuition for undocumented students, requiring colleges to notify law enforcement if they learn a student is undocumented. They also would require state police to DNA test migrants taken into custody, fingerprint and track migrant children in a database, and bar immigrants who are in the country illegally from accessing public legal services. Texas has already added more barbed wire and buoy barriers to the Rio Grande since the election, and Texas Governor Greg Abbott requested another $2.8 billion for his border enforcement program, Operation Lone Star, which, by the way, already cost $11 billion. He had this to say: "We're going to be doing more and faster than anything that's ever been done to regain control of our border, restore order in our communities, and also identify, locate, and deport criminals in the United States of America who have come across the border." Well, it looks like we'll be living in a very different country in the coming years, especially in red states like mine. But this is exactly what many people were afraid of as far as electing Republicans to state and local positions. I'm not even talking about the White House or Congress here. Cenk, I'm not usually a fan of making predictions, but what do you foresee happening as far as Republicans getting these sorts of bills passed? But also, how do you think the public is going to respond to all of it?
Yeah, I'm super worried about it. I think that a lot of them will pass. and the public usually doesn't react in a way that gets these politicians to backpedal unless it's an absolute emergency. So once they pass, it's really hard to bring them back in. And so, some people say, hey, you're so mad at the Democratic establishment. Why vote for an establishment figure like Kamala Harris in the Democratic Party? Well, I mean, in the primary, I would want a populist, and we've fought for that tooth and nail and over the last 8 years. But this is why I vote Democrat, because I don't agree with the Republican policies. So we're going to let teachers bring in firearms to school and not tell anybody. It's concealed. Okay, yeah, that's without prior approval. This is what what happens when everybody's got guns. At some point, somebody gets into a fight. Instead of doing something stupid like yelling at the other person or hitting the other person, they murder the other person. So, okay, yeah, bring that next to my kids in a school. I think it's a terrible idea. But will it pass? Almost certainly will pass. Now we're suing districts over libraries. Like the real threat in America is libraries. So in Florida, they've already banned 700 books from different school districts. 700 books. Because the real danger is education, books, etc. But these will pass. And then I'm super worried about the abortion ones. They're limiting the emergency exceptions. Oh, you've got an emergency, and normally we would try to save the life of the mother. No, we don't care. We're going to limit it so that you're even more screwed in an emergency, not just the regular procedures. So every part of this is a disaster. What is vaccine harm? What does that mean? I mean, I'm worried that people are gonna be like, oh, well, I had a shoulder thing and my back, I don't know. Good enough, give me the money, ban all the vaccines. Oh, no, but look, on that one has the least chance of passing because that touches money. So the minute they touch the pharmaceutical companies, all the Republicans in those states will get bribes, campaign contributions, and then they will backpedal out of that. That's my guess as to what's gonna happen with that. And finally, you take away legal shields from undocumented immigrants. Why is that a disastrous idea? Well, look, people were worried about the border, worried about undocumented immigrants. Maybe that's one of the things that comes out of, yeah, hey, you wanna send back felons that are undocumented immigrants? A lot of Americans are gonna agree with you, and I agree with you, and that makes sense. But if you take away legal shields, well, then you can't report a rape. And then the rapist is out there, let alone the injustice that happened to that person, right? It's gonna happen to the next person, because they didn't have the peace of mind to be able to report things to the authorities. Epic disaster in that regard. So some of the stuff in here is going to be a nightmare, in my opinion. Brian.
Yeah, I've always thought at state assemblies and at that level, that's where the most dangerous politics are being practiced. We're all so focused nationally, but so few people are focused on what their state assemblies are doing. I find it so interesting. We were talking about how the states got their shapes before we went on the air, Yasmin and I. And I got this opportunity to sort of time travel and go back to all the states and their territorial foundings. And, we're sort of turning the clock back where I think states are going to have to become sanctuary states for progressives, where you're going to essentially have to migrate or move to a state that reflects your economic values or other values that you have, where, the political establishment is somewhat mirrors your own value system. And we are just hardening these divisions. It's really sad to see, because I do look at it as a regression. And it goes against the very founding of our American principles that Europeans came here for certain freedoms. We are just so hell-bent on the state level in these red-leaning states to let these state assemblies run amok and roll back freedoms in various, it's not just, reproductive rights. It's so many things, as you guys have just listed. And I just find it to be so sad that we are carving up the map into these two Americas where you have to love book banning and love inhibition, rolling back certain freedoms on certain segments of our society. You have to really get off on that to support it and enjoy the fact that your state assembly is spending its time doing that when it could be focused on so many other things to benefit the welfare of the people of the state. And I think you're seeing Newsom understanding that too, in a very sort of, he was the first out of the box to say, you know what California isn't going to do? Cooperate. And I don't know if he's setting himself up for his own political ambition, but I found that to be kind of like a very bold statement to say, this large state out here isn't playing ball with any of these things. We're going to protect our sovereignty as if we are a country. And so I don't know. I wonder long term, as these state assemblies, if they do get their way, what kind of migration you're going to see in America, where people are going to move. Where are they going to move to permanently? I mean, you don't have to leave the country. You can just move to a state that reflects your values. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Last couple of thoughts on that is, first of all, I just realized, when you started saying it, Brian, my God, if we were going to do a story about states, do we have the perfect expert who knows exactly how the states came to be on this panel? You know what's cancel culture? Banning books. Like, I mean, how they missed that irony is amazing. And lastly, look, to Brian's point about having to move to states, one of the proposals in one of these states is to start taking away some necessary health care for trans Americans from Medicare in specific. No, don't do that. Don't do that. We're not having a conversation about what to call people and is it the right name, not the right name. No, that is a core constitutional right, and that is people's health care. It's non-negotiable. So if they take that away in certain states, they're going to force people to move, and that might be the most dangerous out of all of these proposals. Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.